I've realized something about nature. It doesn't perform for cameras. You either arrive prepared or you miss the moment completely. Imagine driving to the edge of India, where roads slowly disappear, mobile network stops working, and suddenly, thousands of flamingos rise into the sky at the exact same time. And the worst part? The first time we saw them, we had no cameras. That's how our first wildlife shoot began. Hi, I'm Sarthak. I'm a filmmaker and I run a production company. Most of our shoots usually happen inside mines, factories, and industrial locations across India. But this time, nature completely humbled us. We traveled to Point Calimere Bird and Wildlife Sanctuary, one of the most remote and strangely underrated wildlife locations in the country. And honestly, almost nobody talks about this place. This sanctuary sits at the edge of India. And for a few months every year, thousands of migratory birds make it their temporary home. Point Calimere feels almost unreal when you first enter it. Lagoons, mangroves, forests, salt pans, open coastlines. Everything slowly starts merging into one massive ecosystem. And if you're lucky, you start spotting flamingos, painted storks, blackbucks, shorebirds, sometimes all within the same landscape. But wildlife filmmaking teaches you one thing very quickly. Nature does not care about your schedule, not your timeline, not your production plan, not your expectations. And honestly, that's what makes it beautiful. Because after traveling all this way, we actually missed our first major wildlife moment. Due to permissions and seasonal timing, we reached slightly late. By then, many migratory birds had already started leaving. So during recce, we were mostly just scouting locations, no proper setup, no expectation, and then suddenly we saw them. Thousands of flamingos. And the painful part, we had no gear ready. No telephoto lens, no wildlife setup, nothing. Just all of us standing there watching one of the most cinematic visuals we had ever seen. Completely unprepared. And as filmmakers, that kind of pain is difficult to explain. Imagine witnessing the shot of your life and not being able to film it. For a few seconds, nobody even spoke. Because sometimes, visuals become too large for language. And honestly, that was one of those moments. At that point, we thought, okay, maybe wildlife isn't happening for us today. So we started exploring other parts of Point Calimere. Historical sites, local stories, temple locations. On our first day of shoot, we were planning to cover cultural sites and suddenly a forest ranger rushed towards us. He looked at us and said, "If you want the birds, leave right now." And instantly, everything became chaos. Tripods flying, people switching lenses while running, dust everywhere, camera bags half open, everybody silently praying the birds would still be there when we arrived. Nobody tells you this about wildlife filmmaking. It's 90% patience and 10% absolute panic. But what makes Point Calimere special isn't just the wildlife. It's the mythology hidden inside the geography. One of the places we visited was Ramarpadam, a site believed to carry the footprints of Lord Ram. And according to local stories, this was one of the points from where Ram considered traveling towards Lanka. But instead of attacking from behind through the shorter route, he chose the longer path through Rameshwaram. Because as Maryada Purushottam, he chose fairness over convenience. And standing there at the edge of ocean, hearing that story, felt strangely surreal. Because Point Calimere constantly feels suspended between nature, mythology, and silence. But honestly, the most inspiring person we met there wasn't a filmmaker, a ranger, or an official. It was a 78-year-old man who has spent nearly 4 decades protecting olive ridley turtle eggs. Every night, he walks along the shoreline, collects vulnerable eggs, and carefully transfers them into protected hatcheries. For 40 years, no headlines, no internet fame, no dramatic recognition, just quiet consistency. Some people protect nature professionally, some protect it simply because they love it. And honestly, meeting people like that changes something inside you because they remind you how much meaningful work in this world happens silently, without applause. Over the next few days, we traveled through mangroves, salt pans, open coastlines, and at some point, we genuinely stopped filming for a while because every direction looked unreal. The kind of landscapes that don't even feel Indian at times, almost dreamlike. And I think that's the strange thing about filmmaking. You begin by chasing visuals, but eventually, certain places start changing you internally. Some shoots give you footage, some shoots give you perspective. Point Calimere wasn't just our first wildlife shoot. It became a reminder that India still has places so raw, so untouched, and so visually overwhelming that they make you temporarily forget you're even working. And honestly, the whole experience felt less like production and more like nature briefly allowing us inside its world. We ended up making an entire documentary there. But this is just the beginning. Because across India, there are stories hidden inside forests, mountains, coastlines, people. And we're going to keep finding them.